my channel. Today I am sharing with you the second of a two-part series with our guest Keith Collins, who visited us as part of Echoing Air's residency at Jacksonville State University. Keith and I also put together another video which I shared with you last week. So if you missed that, I'll be sure to link it here so that you can go ahead and catch up on that. That will have information on the history of the bassoon from the very beginnings in time all the way through modern reproductions. Today we're going to focus on 19th century innovations as well as repertoire.
Just like on a modern bassoon, the low D is unstable as anything else. The only instrument it's really, in the bassoon family, that it's really stable on is the earlier, the dulcians, because they have the D key, the D hole or the D key, depending on what version you're playing, in a better place. So hopefully will help you when you're struggling trying to get the low Ds in tune to know that this is a problem that's been going on for 300 years. There is no such thing as a low B natural. There are pieces that call for it, Galliard calls for it, and what they would do is they just tie a string around so that the key couldn't close all the way, and that gave you a B natural. So you couldn't do both within one piece without a really quick sliding up and down of a string. Some of the old fingering charts we have show that you can get both pitches with just the one fingering of a B flat. I can never do that. Maybe it's just the way that I play or make reeds or whatever. So there's two big branches of the family, and this was not true until about the 1830s or 40s. The Germans took these things, and they did lots of experiments. And so this guy, Alman Raeder, worked with Heckel, and they came up with a system where the bassoon had a much more even sound up and down the whole range. They tried other systems, the Bohm system, which flutes use and saxophones kind of sort of use. They tried that on bassoons. Terrible, sounds awful. But instead, they came across this German system, or Alman Raeder system. The French didn't like it. They kept using their old system, which is much more like this, just with some more keys on it, but still not nearly as key heavy as a German bassoon is. French bassoons are not doing so well in the world. They're, even today, it was always, even 20, 30 years ago, it was always a sort of a niche market, and now it's even more so. I played some copies of French bassoons from around 1760, and the high notes are just is so easy. So when I'm playing a Rameau opera, I want one of those. By the same token, I would not want to take one of those 1760 French instruments and try and play a Bach bass line, because that just stinks. It's just really hard, because the low notes just don't work. So they're in some rehearsal, and Bach's bassoonist, he gets in literally a fist fight. Like, this guy is like throwing his bassoon at Johann Sebastian Bach because Bach said that he sounded like a nanny goat on his bassoon. There's a lot to this story, which is actually kind of interesting. First of all, that Bach already at this early date has a clear idea of what he wants this new instrument to sound like. We know that he'd been using the earlier version of this, the dulcian or curdle. And we know that they coexisted side by side for a while in Germany, but Bach preferred this. What this seems to mean is that we think this guy, whose name I forget now, who got into a fight with Bach, he was probably playing with either a lot of vibrato or maybe he had some kind of palsy, which you didn't do then, right? Vibrato was not part of your sound. It was an ornament you might stick in occasionally. So our guesses are that this guy was just vibrating the heck out of his bassoon, and Bach was horrified, and the guy wouldn't stop, and thus the fist fight ensued. Do you all know how the first one goes, sort of, kind of, mostly? Some of you might. It's written, 8th note rest, and then an 8th note, and then 6 triplets. Keep in mind, this piece was printed or engraved, and they didn't have any way to indicate if you had part of a triplet that was not complete. So if you just had the let part of the triplet written, they couldn't figure out a way to write that. So this pickup note was probably part of the triplet. Rather than being bum, ba, 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 bum, bum, it was probably ba, 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 da, dum. So triste, you know what triste means? Sad. Yeah. Sad. This is the only time Telemann says sad. All of his music that survives, all the movements, this one. And it's sad, right? F minor, bassoonist is sad, because that's an F minor. But he also is using the fact that we've got all these cover notes on this instrument. So just think about the plaintive sound these things can do. We can do it with these instruments as well. You've really got to tell a story right from the beginning. It's not just about getting the right notes under your fingers, but even if you're not a bassoon major, or you're not thinking you're not going to necessarily play it for the rest of your life, the idea that you've got the power to cause your audience to feel something, that's the really amazing, empowering thing about music. Figaro, of course, is a little bit later. We're talking Mozart era, so a classical instrument. But the classical bassoon for Figaro is not that much different for this. Have you all ever seen the fiendishly difficult part that is? It's one of the excerpts that auditioners have to do that strikes terror in the hearts of every bassoonist. And it's modern bassoon is just god awful, right? You have to go D to the C sharp, like that. On this instrument, it's so awesome. I get to do this. And that's all there is to it. For that part, I'm just... I don't have to play on this instrument because it's the wrong instrument, but it's the same idea. Having fewer keys might seem like it's a hindrance. It actually really helps sometimes on some of those difficult things, like Figaro and other Mozart excerpts especially that are particularly difficult. On the classical instrument I use, it's a copy of an instrument from about the year 1800. And he had put on a key which could be used for C sharp, but it really doesn't. They hadn't quite figured out where to put that yet. It's better just to use it as a speaker key, just like I would on a modern instrument. And this might come as a shock. Everybody's sitting down. No one's too caffeinated, right? Because all half steps are not created equal. Equal temperament is out of tune. It is equally out of tune. With these instruments, we have to learn to play in about 3 or 4 temperaments. So one of the first things I do when I get to a rehearsal for a first concert series or first concert rehearsal, I'll ask the harpsichordist or whatever, like, what temperament are we in? And he'll say Volati or Werkmeister 3 or whatever. And that tells me a little bit about where I need to be putting some half steps. If I'm playing an E major, it makes a huge difference whether my G sharp is really a G sharp or an A flat. Can you hear the second one being this higher, right? A flat is higher than G sharp. And so that makes a big difference when you're playing with a keyboard that is unchangeable.
If you enjoyed today's video and you want to make sure that you don't miss any future videos, be sure to click that subscribe button. If you want to keep up on all of our adventures at Jacksonville State University, there is always Instagram or Twitter that will also share all my bassoon adventures, and even sometimes Snapchat. I have to admit, I'm getting really into Snapchat. So those are all available to you, and they're linked as well in the description box. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!
Really cool instrument, lots of solo rep for this thing, and chamber music rep. Actually, we don't get as much of that stuff until we end up in like the classic era. They came in different sizes: soprano, alto, tenor, bass, and great bass. The soprano is awesome. A pocket bassoon, I can literally put it in a backpack and just